this is Gina. Today we're going to make this cute little bracelet with the Winter Wonders treasure bag. However, these are very common beads, very common size. You can do this in any color scheming you want, and you probably have everything you need in your stash to do this. So don't feel left out, just follow along and just pick out some stuff similar, and you can do this really quick and easy. Now this is a design that I did a couple years ago for one of my other treasure bags. I believe it was a Christmas treasure bag too, and I used much bigger beads. So at that time I had said I would make one with smaller beads, and I never got around to it. And that was kind of a crazy time in my life with my mom being sick and stuff like that, so I never got around to it. So I decided to do it today with the beads from this bag and show you just how pretty it is. It turns out really pretty with the smaller beads. Before I used an 8mm and a 6mm. Now I'm using 4mm and 6mm beads. And I'm going to put this on very quickly so you can see what it looks like on my wrist. And then we'll look and see what it takes to make this bracelet. So this is what this looks like. This is really pretty. It would be so pretty in so many color schemes. It doesn't have to be Christmassy, and even in this color scheme I've done, doesn't necessarily have to be Christmassy. So that's what we're going to make. Let's go ahead and look and see what it takes to make this particular project. So what we're going to be using are the 6mm round imitation opalite beads, the red ones that are in your bag. You can use any 6mm round you want. You can make this a crystal. You can even make this a 6mm bicone. Should work just fine. And then we're going to use a 4mm round, or a 4x3 rondelle will work just fine too. And I'm going to use this opaque white. You could do something, you could use crystals, you could use whatever you would like. Something translucent, whatever color scheming makes you happy. So we're going to be using the 12 of these, and I haven't counted this, but I will put into the description box beneath the video player exactly how many I use. So 6mm round, a 4mm round. Then we are going to be using some 11O seed beads and some 15O seed beads. So I have Starlight in the toe hole line, so it's galvanized permanent finish Starlight is what I'm using, and 11O, 15O, and I'm going to use 2 8Os for my clasping area. Then I am going to use the toggle clasp that came in the bag. So just whatever toggle clasp you would like to use, or whatever type of clasping you would like to use, will work fine. So let me get arranged here. I'm going to use a size 12 beading needle and some 10-pound Nanofil. You can use 6-pound Fireline or 8-pound Nanofil also. I'm going to put onto my needle about 4.5 to 5 feet of thread, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, to start this project, you are going to pick up onto your needle an 11O seed bead, and then 3 of your 4mm round beads, then an 11O, and a 6mm round, just like this. Let's get you in closer. Now you will have to extend your thread during this process, so I will post a link for a video that shows you how to do that too. So let's go ahead and bring this down to the end of the project here, or to the end of the thread, and then we're going to leave just enough tail to hold on to and tie a knot, and we're going to come back up through the first 11O on the tail side and the 3 4mm rounds and the 11O. I'm going to hold on to my tail. I'm going to hold on to these beads I have drawn my thread through, and then I'm just going to bring this all up like this. Now we have to sew back through this, so we're going to go through the 6mm round, kind of draw this together, and then right here we are where our working thread and our tail thread meet. So we're just going to cross our working thread over our tail thread and put the tail through the loop that is created twice, and draw a surgeon's knot down between the 11O and the 6mm round bead. And make sure it stays between the beads and doesn't go up into the beads. So just kind of adjust it. Then we are going to sew into that 11O and continue sewing all the way around. So I'm just going through the 4mm rounds, and then I am going to go into the 11/0 and the 6mm round here. Now I'm going to move my tail out of the way, and I'm going to pick up an 11/0 and 3 of my 4mm round beads and an 11/0, and I'm going to go back through on the opposite side from which my tail is coming out. I'm going to go back through that 6mm round bead. Then I'm going to sew back through these beads to secure them. So I will come up through the 11/0 and the 4mm rounds, the 11/0, and back into my 6mm round, just like this. And this is what I have. At this point, I'm just going to kind of trim this tail down just to get it out of my way. And then I am going to sew back up into the opposite side, the side I started in. I'm going to go into that 11/0 here just to make sure it is really secure where that knot is. And I'm going to go up through 2 4mm rounds and exit the center 4mm round bead. Then I am going to pick up 2 11/0 seed beads onto my needle and an 8/0. I'm going to drop that down to my piece, and then I'm going to pick up my clasp, and I'm using the round side, and I'm going to bring it down to my piece and then go back through the 8/0 seed bead. I'm going to hold on to the 8/0 seed bead, and I'm going to draw everything down by pulling on my thread, and that's what I have so far. Now I'm going to pick up 2 11/0s, and I'm going to go through the other side of the 4mm round that I'm attaching to, right here. And I'm going to pull these through. Now we're going to sew through this one more time and on camera, and then we'll sew through it one more time off camera just to make sure it's very secure. So I'm coming out of the 4mm round bead right here. I'm going to go up into the 2 11/0s and the 8/0 right above it. And then I'm going to slide through my clasp. And I'm going to pull my thread through and then go back down into the 8/0 and the 2 11/0s on the other side like this. Then I'm going to pull my thread through and go back through the bead I'm attaching to. Do that one more time just to make sure we have plenty of thread for our clasping, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have secured my clasping. I need to sew back through my piece and get down to this middle bead here to start the body of my bracelet. So I'm coming out of the bead I attached my clasping to. I'm going to go down into the 4mm round and the 11/0 behind it, and just that one 11/0. And then I'm going to go into the 6mm round bead, and then I'm going to go down into the 11/0 and the 4mm round on the bottom part of the unit here. Then I'm going to go into the middle 4mm round. And here I am ready to start my next unit. So for each unit, this is a full unit here. We're going to share this bead in each unit. Share this bead of the previous unit to make your next unit. So we have to pick up the beads on either side. So we're going to pick up a 4mm round, and then we're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead. We're going to pick up a 6mm round and an 11/0 seed bead and a 4mm round. So this is what I have, just like this. We'll make one side of the unit at a time. And this is the first side. So we're going to drop this down, and then we're going to go back into the opposite side of the bead we are attaching to, the bead that our thread is coming out of, just like that. Now we're going to sew back around this entire thing just to make sure that it is secure. So we're coming out of the middle bead here. We're going to go into this 4mm round, the 11/0 on the other side of it, through the 6mm round, the 11/0 and 4mm round on this side, and back into the attaching bead. Now we are secure. We need to get into the 6mm round bead so that we can make the other half. So I'm going into this 4mm round here, the 11/0 on this side and through the 6mm round, avoiding the 11/0 on the other side. And now I am going to make my other half. So I need to pick up an 11/0 seed bead and 3 4mm round beads and an 11/0 seed bead. So this is what I have here. And I'm going to go into the opposite side of the bead from which my thread is coming out. Just like that. And sew around and secure this side of the unit. Just go through every single bead, the 11/0 and the 6mm round. And now I'm secure. I'm going to sew down to this middle bead here to start my next unit. So I'll sew through this bead, the 11/0, the 4mm round, and the 4mm round in the center, just like this. And we're going to make another unit. So we are sharing this bead, so we're going to pick up a 4mm round, an 11/0, a 6mm round, an 11/0, and a 4mm round. You only pick up your 11/0s on either side of your big bead, on your 6mm bead. So that's what that looks like when I slide it down, and then I go into the opposite side of the 4mm round bead I'm coming out of. And then, of course, I sew around and secure the stitch. And just sew through all of these beads. And now I am all the way around. Everything's secure. I have to sew up to my 6mm round. So I'll go through this 4mm round and the 11/0 behind it. Then I'll come through the 6mm round, avoiding the 11/0 on the other side, just like this. Then I am going to pick up an 11/0 and 3 4mm round beads and an 11/0. And then I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 6mm round bead that I'm coming out of, just like this. And then I'm just going to sew back through all of those beads to secure them into the 11/0, into the 6mm round, and then I will sew into the 11/0 on the other side here, the 4mm round, and then the center 4mm round. And we will just continue making those units. If you need to, back up the video and watch and follow until you have the pattern down, and then we will go to length. So continue making these units until you have 12 units, or you are about a ½ inch short of the length you want, because we are going to do another embellishment, and that's going to kind of draw everything in, so you're going to lose some length with this particular pattern. So we're going to measure from the middle of our toggle end here to the end of the last unit, and it's just right at, or just barely under, 7½ inches, which is basically how long I want my bracelet to be. However, because of the embellishments I'm going to do, I'm going to lose about an inch, and then I'm going to add another ½ inch putting my clasping on. So you want to go about a ½ inch short of the length you want to end up with. Now, you want to make sure you end on a full unit too. So you want to have your 3 little 4mm round beads on the end of the 6mm round. You could attach your clasping to the 6mm round, however, it's going to mess with the embellishments we're going to do. So you want to make sure you have a full unit. At this point, if your thread is getting a little short, sew through some of these beads extend your Fireline or Nanofil, sew through some of these beads before you start the next embellishment, simply because when you extend your Fireline or Nanofil, sometimes you cannot get a really tiny knot, and it will be difficult to slide through your 15-0 seed beads, which is what we're going to use next. So at this point, I recommend you have extended and you have a nice long piece of thread. So now we're going to put the clasping on this end, and then we're going to work into our embellishments. So I'm coming out of this 4mm round after securing my last half of my unit, and I'm going to pick up two 11-0 seed beads, and then I'm going to pick up an 8-0, and I'm going to drop it down to my piece. Then I'm going to pick up my clasp and go through it and bring it down to that 8-0. And let me move this over a little bit, bring it in a little here. And now we're going to go into just the 8-0 seed bead. Come here. And I'm going to hold on to that 8-0, pull my thread through, and draw everything together like this. Now I'm going to pick up two 11-0 seed beads, and then I will go through the opposite side of the bead I'm attaching to. Now we need to sew through this twice, just like we did on the other side. To sew up through following your original thread path, and do that twice, and we'll be back. Okay. So I have sewn through twice and secured my clasping, and now I'm coming out of the bead that I attached my clasping to. We are now going to switch to 15-0 seed beads and do this embellishment exclusively with 15-0s. So you're going to pick up onto your needle 7 15-0 seed beads. So I've got 3, 6, 7, just like this. We're coming out of this bead here. We're going to cross over, go into the opposite side of the 6mm round bead, avoiding any of the 11-0s or anything in between. We're going to do a diagonal stitch. So from here to here. And we're going to go right through that bead like that. I'm going to pick this up and pull my thread through. Lift this up over and just line up my embellishment so that it just pulls right across those beads, just like that. Now I'm coming out of my 6mm round, and I'm going to pick up 7 more seed beads, 15-0s, and I'm coming out of this side, and now I need to go into the opposite side on this one. So I'm coming here, I'm going to come here, just like this, and pull this down so it lies diagonally on the other side of the 6mm round bead, just like that. So you get a little line on either side of your 6mm round if you're doing this properly. Then pick up 7 more of your 15-0 seed beads. Now if you're using a different brand than I am, like a Miyuki or something, you are going to have to figure out exactly how many beads you need, because Tohos are bigger than Miyuki or, say, Czech. So you will just have to put one on and see how many beads you need. So we're coming out on this side of the white bead. We're going to cross over, go into the opposite side in the 6mm round bead. You can just move those 11-0s aside if they get in your way and pull your thread through. Let's turn this way. Just like that. And we're just going to continue doing this particular embellishment the entire length of the bracelet. So I'm going to pick up 7 more of my seed beads, and I am going to go into the opposite side of the middle white bead right here. And pull this through. I have it positioned so funny I can't really get my hands in the right position. There we go. So we're just going to continue doing that all the way down the entire length, and when we have finished that, we'll be back. Make sure you have adequate tension so that none of your beads, there's no slack. However, don't pull it so hard that your beads bunch up and they do not lay pretty next to each other. continue doing this embellishment and we'll be back. Okay, so I have finished my entire embellishment. I'm about to put my last one on. So I'm coming out here and I am just going to cross over and go into the 6mm round bead right here and pull this through. Now I have my entire embellishment. We need to do another embellishment down the edges to draw this all together, finish up the edges, and make the embellishment that we just did look seamless. So what we're going to do is we're coming out of the 6mm round bead. We need to position our needle so we can work down the side. So we have to sew up through this upper portion of the last unit here. So we're going to go through the 11-0 here. And why won't you go through there? There we go. Through the 11-0. And that's probably where I tied my knot. It probably slipped up. So I'm just going to pull this through. And then I'm going to go into the middle bead. And then I'm going to go into this side 4mm round and the 11-0 behind it, just like this. And pull my thread through. Now I'm going to get you a little closer so you can see exactly what we're going to do. Between each of your units in the middle, there is a little space between the 11-0s on either side of the 6mm round. When we come to these, when we come out of one of the 11-0s, as we travel down, we will pick up a 15-0. We're going to put a 15-0 between the 11-0s on each section next to the 6mm round. So pick up a 15-0. I'm coming out of this 11-0. I'm going to go into the next 11-0 and the 4mm round behind it. Exit and pull this 15-0 down between the 11-0s. Then I'm going to pick up an 11-0. So every time I come to my white beads, or the beads in your center, your 5 center beads here, you are going to place an 11-0 between them. So between your 4mm rounds. As you come through, you'll come through the 4mm round and the 11-0 on the other side, and you'll pick up a 15-0 and place it between the two 11-0s. So right there, go through that next 4mm round and draw this in nice and tight so that there's no slack, and pick up your next 11-0 going between the 4mm rounds, through the 4mm round, through the 11-0, and pull the 11-0 down. So we're just going to continue doing that. An 11-0 between the 4mm rounds, a 15-0 between the 11-0s. And we're going to work the entire length of the bracelet, and when we get to the end, we'll be back. Okay, so I have put my embellishment on the side all the way up. Get you in close so you can see what it looks like. And now I'm coming out of my last 4mm round here after putting a 15-0 between these two 11-0s. I'm just going to tug on that a little bit and then adjust so that everything looks really nice. And then I'm going to slide through this 4mm round on the very top of my unit here where my clasping is, and slide through it, slide down into the next one, and then I'm also going to slide down into the 11-0 behind it. And I am going to, let me turn this, I am going to start my embellishment again. So 15-0 between these two 11-0s, and then, oh, come here, and then into the 4mm round behind it. And then I'm going to pick up an 11-0 to put between my 4mm rounds here. And I'm just going to continue all the way down. See if I can slide through that 11-0 too. There we go. Continue all the way down the entire length, just like I did on the other side. And once you have put this entire embellishment on, we'll be back, tie off the thread, and see what it looks like. Okay, so I have finished my entire embellishment on this side now, and I'm just going to take my thread and give it a little tug, make sure everything's nice and neat and tight, but don't tighten it so tight that you bunch anything up, but you want to draw it all together. And once you've drawn it all together, then it looks like the embellishment just leads right into the top embellishment, and it finishes off the sides really nicely, as you can see. So now I am coming out of my last 4mm round after putting this 15-0 between these two 11-0s and slid up into the 4mm round. Now I am going to untangle my thread here and go into this middle 4mm round. And I'm going to pull this out. Then I'm going to go between the beads and underneath the thread bridge, right between these two 4mm rounds. I don't know what word was going to come out of my mouth there, but between the 4mm rounds, and then go into the loop and pull a knot down between those two beads, and then I'm going to sew into the next 4mm round, and then into all three beads on the side here, and out of this 4mm round here, just to get myself down a little ways away from my knot, and I'm going to tie another one. So you can tie anywhere there's a nice little thread bridge. I'm going to go between this 11-0 and this 4mm round here, and just position my thread so that it's right between these two beads and it's not impinging the thread that's going through to the embellishment. And then I'm just going to pull this down, and then I can just go through a few more beads. See how far I can get here. Some of them are at funny angles. Let's see if I can get through that one too. Nope, just this far. I'll go through that 11-0 here too, and then I'm going to just exit out one of these 4mm rounds, and I'm going to call it good. So we're going to do this. And you can bring that down a little bit. You can use your thread zapper. You can do whatever you'd like to end that off. I just cut it short. And that is what my bracelet looks like. And I'm going to put it on. And then I'll measure it for you so you can see exactly how long it turned out to be. Because though it was 7.5 inches already, it turns out to be about 7.5 inches, because I like mine to be 7.5 inches, so I have some movement on my wrist and it doesn't fall into my palm that way. So this is the length that I normally go for, and that is the length I originally made when I did my base units. But because of the embellishments, it drew it all together and it shortened my length. So you have to take that into consideration when you're making your length. So now you can see when I measured it before, it was right at 7.5 inches, and I'm going halfway through the toggle here on this side to here, and it's still 7.5 inches. So you will want to go to the length that you want to achieve for this bracelet. And that's what it looks like. I made 2 of them. Turned out really pretty, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please consider subscribing, giving me a little like, or perhaps hitting that bell for notifications so that we can continue making pretty stuff together. Bye-bye.